Redditors, what is your biggest regret and why? I declined a job with Blizzard Entertainment in Austin, TX because I didn't want to live in Texas. I was working for them through an outsource company, and they offered to pay relocation for me and everything. 3 years later and I'm in the US Army because of the recession, and I'm stationed at Featuring Hood, an hour away from Austin. Frick me. I'm in my 20s and pushing myself to date, to travel, to go out. When I think of my dream life, I wish I was doing what you did in your 20s. Reading, creating art, having self-care days, chilling at home is what makes me happy right now. I feel like these aspects and experiences in my life are so empty because they are not representative for who I am. I regret never finding out more about my dad's earlier life. I know he used to be in the RAF and was stationed in Singapore. I know he was a keen cyclist and had been in many races around the world. I know he was a semi-pro bowler, but I don't know the specifics of anything. He was taken ill early in 2015 and diagnosed with cancer. Died Christmas 2015. When the local vicar visited to talk to us about his funeral service, his questions brought me to tears. Where was your dad born? I don't know. Where did he go to school? I don't know. What did he do when he left school? I don't know. It really hit home and made me realize how little I actually knew about my dad's life prior to me being born. All the things I didn't tell my sister before she died. Not telling her I loved her every day, that she wasn't a burden to me or my family for being born with a cocktail of fed up diagnoses in her head like depression and GAD, that she didn't need to apologize in her last letter to us, that it's okay for her to pass on and be happier in whatever life comes next. It's been more than 2.5 years since she did it and we're all doing okay, but damn. I'd give anything to tell her I love her one last time. I'd gladly give my life and all I have in a blink of an eye. If you can read this I'm okay and I'll be okay, but damn, I miss you more than words can say. I love you sis. Edit. Damn, this got more attention than expected. Thanks for all the upvotes guys. It truly means a lot that you care. Take my story as a lesson folks. Tell the people you care about you love and care for them. You can never say those words too many times and you don't want to regret the same things as I do. I had an online friend. I met her on Roblox and we started talking. We had a lot of things in common. We both had similar interests so we continued talking. She was my everything. The one person I could fully talk to and not feel weird. She was someone who could make me laugh even when I was in a dark time. She is the reason I didn't commit suicide. We've known each other for 1 year and 3 months now and she was everything to me. However, last month, told me about her problems and how she wanted to commit suicide. I tried my best, my very best. I tried like I've never before in persuading her to not kill herself. She did. She's gone and I just feel like garbage. She was an awesome friend. My best friend, and I failed her when she needed me the most. TL doctor, I failed in saving my friend with her depression and she's now gone because I couldn't save her. In my senior year of high school, I asked a girl out for a date, and much to my surprise, she accepted. The day of the date she told me she couldn't make it but would be glad to do something the next day. However, she ghosted me from then on. Supposedly, her friends forbade her from going out with me. To say that I wasn't very popular in school would be an understatement. I never got an actual explanation from her of what happened, as she died a few years later in a car accident, and not getting closure on that has been something I've regretted ever since. The only good thing that came out of it is that I learned that sometimes some things will just never be answered, so don't expect all the stories in your life to have a clean the end. I regret flushing my sister's ashes down the toilet. When I was 4 years old, I had stumbled across a tiny square box hidden in the back of my mother's closet. I was intrigued by the mysteriousness of it and wanted nothing more than to see what treasures were inside of it. Inside, I had discovered a jar containing some sort of black sand. Cool, I thought. A new thing to play with. After mindlessly playing with the sand for a while, I wanted to see what would happen if I tried flushing it down the toilet. So, I dumped all of the components of the jar into the toilet and flushed it down. Just to my luck, my mother had walked in on the scene and with just one glance at the now empty jar and the sprinkles of the remaining black sand, she let out the most chilling scream I've ever heard. The crack in her voice still haunts me to today. The bone-chilling death stare she gave me will forever be imprinted in my brain. She fell to the ground and started weeping, all while I had no idea what a terrible mistake I had made. For some reason, I received no traditional punishment for my life-changing actions. Instead, I think my mother's way of disciplining me was to emotionally detach herself from me. It means exactly what you are thinking. After that incident, my mother was my mere guardian. She no longer nurtured me with the motherly love that every child needs. After I became old enough to take care of myself, she was also able to physically detach herself from me. She'd take every chance she'd get to be away from home, to be away from me. I'd come back to an empty home day after day, while my mother was off to God knows where. She no longer loved me. It was evident. When I was in my late teens, I reached out to one of my aunts and asked her to tell me more about the death of my infant sibling, the birth of me, and my deadbeat father. She didn't tell me much about my sibling, at least not as much as I would have liked. However, she mentioned that my parents had trouble conceiving children, which was supposedly part of the reason why my father left, and that during my mother's first pregnancy, she suffered a miscarriage. It became apparent to me just how important my baby sister was to my parents, seeing that it was their first child after many attempts. When the child was 2, she fell terribly ill with acute leukemia and died just weeks after. It had shattered my parents. It had broken my father enough to walk out of my mother's life for good. My aunt told me that my mother found out about her pregnancy with me about a month after my father left. I was a healthy baby. A part of me feels guilty that I have never expressed any form of grief towards my baby sister. I mean, how can one expect me to? I never met her, and even though I'm sure she was lovely, I don't feel any connection towards her. Today, I have no relationship with my mother. We don't communicate, nor do I ever see her. The last time I heard from her was 12 years ago. 12 years ago. The constant longing for some form of relationship with her is ever present and hurts me to no end. A couple of years ago, I was able to track my father down with the help of some relatives and arrange a meeting with him. I was so nervous that day. I had no clue what I was gonna say to him. I had no idea whether I should be angry at him for leaving my mother and I like that, or if I should be grateful that at least one of my parents were willing to talk to me. Seeing him for the first time triggered a whole bunch of emotions within me. He looked so much like me. The way his arms around me eloped me in so much love, so much warmth, made me start sobbing on the spot. I was overcome with emotion, and so we talked for hours. Talked about my life after he left, and his life after he left. He had never remarried, but had had 2 sons. He talked about his travels around the world, and his diagnosis of diabetes. I talked about my degree in law, and my struggles with depression. That day was undoubtedly one of the best days of my life. I felt like I finally belonged in this world, that I had a place. I will forever cherish the way he welcomed me into his world, arms wide open. That same year, my father was involved in a tragic car accident that took his life. If any part of me had thought I had experienced the most amount of pain one possibly can, boy was I wrong. It was so heartbreaking. We had become so close in a matter of months, and for once in my life, I was actually happy. My life fell into a downward spiral after his death. Lost my job, my very few friends and I drifted apart, and I fell into deep depression. Mom, if you are out there somewhere, I want you to know that I am truly sorry. I never meant to hurt you the way I did. Every day, I wish I could go back in time and take back what I did, but I can't. And I'm sorry. I wish you loved me. All I want is love. I've had a total of 2 suicide attempts, and have been hospitalized for each. I can't keep going on like this when everything and everyone I've possibly loved has been stripped away from me. I just can't. Tomorrow will be my final attempt, and this time for real. There is no going back now. Not going to college. Not necessarily because a degree is useful and opens a lot of options, but mainly because of the social aspect. I had quite a few friends in high school, but then once we graduated and everyone went to college I started seeing them less and less. They almost all lived too far away to see more than once every couple months. And because I wasn't in college I didn't really make new friends while they did. I still keep in touch with a couple of them, but I haven't hung out with a friend in years. Literally, last time I went out with friends was around 2015, and I used to go out multiple times a week during high school and immediately after. On the one hand I miss it, but on the other hand I don't really have any interest in making new friends at this point, and also having an education would be very nice, since I don't really have any skills to get employed doing a real job. The social part does matter more to me though, I think.